So today's class is the splendor and benefits of opening a Tao temple. And I'd like to start by thanking the grace of heaven, virtues of masters, grand predecessor, transmitters, and all of you for giving me this opportunity to share this class today. So when we think of the word temple, the first thing that might come to mind are the ones like in Asia that are really large, beautiful, with amazing architecture. Or we might think of the Tao temples in America we've seen, like the headquarters in New York, or the newly opened public temple in Ohio. But we also have public temples in California, Iowa, and Texas. But there are actually tons of home or family temples everywhere. And when it comes to temples, it's really not about the size. And while the large ones are beautiful, even the smaller public temples and the small home temples have the same dignity, right? The Buddha's presence is equal in all temples, and all of them have the same heavenly mandate. So if we ever decide to establish our own home temple, we don't have to spend tons of money and have to have a huge space to do it. What really matters is just our sincere heart and our commitment to doing it. So in our case, my husband and I, we established our home temple in 2020 during COVID. And my reasoning was because, I was worried about the pandemic and a lot of people were dying. So we decided to set up a home temple, hoping that Buddhas would help protect those nearby. And, while a temple is a big commitment and does require effort, it's really worthwhile. It's made our home feel more peaceful, safe, knowing that we have saints and Buddha's presence in our home every day. And truthfully, I can feel how much, Buddhas help us and support us all the time, especially during hardships in our lives. It's nice to know that we have a temple at home so we can do bows and pray for others. So having a home temple is really special. Now, the difference between an ordinary Buddhist temple and our heavenly Tao temples is that the Tao temples have the heavenly mandated teachers that show us the path to absolute heaven or permanent heaven. And what's physically different is our Tao temples have the 3 lamps. So the 2 front lamps are called Liang Yi Den, or the sun and moon lamps. And the left one represents the sun, or yang, or yang in Chinese. And the right represents the moon, or yin. So the main lamp in the center, it represents the formless, God, or we could say true nature, the source. And the flame of that main lamp symbolizes the Holy Spirit's true fire, which signifies the Tao lineage being passed down. So that's why a transmitting master has to use this true fire to open our main door and guide us onto this path of true enlightenment. Now, we also have to know that there's also a formless temple within each of us that also has a main lamp, which is really the first treasure. And we also have the 2 front lamps, which are our eyes, right? So we should always look within our own true nature, our own formless temple, so we can be one with heaven. And on our temples, we typically have these Buddha statues. And the significance of that is first to show respect to the immortals and Buddhas. But second, it serves as a reminder. We have to use these external forms to cultivate the true formless, to align with Buddha's heart and to follow the Buddha's actions. And so we can reflect inwardly and find that Buddha nature within each of us. So the 3 inseparables of Tao cultivation. The first one is to never leave our predecessors, never leave the Dharma teachings, and to never leave the temple. So here the temple is referring to 2 types. The first one, which is the physical temple or the Tao field, we don't want to leave that. And the second is that formless temple, right? So that's referring to our Buddha nature, our innate temple. So we never want to stray from either the formless temple within us or that physical temple that we go to. So the 3 main purposes of a heavenly Tao temple. The first is to transmit the Tao. So we need a physical location to do the Tao receiving ceremony. So a temple is kind of like a Dharma boat. We carry sentient beings across the bitter sea to the other shore, this place of enlightenment. And at these Tao temples, those with affinity can receive the Tao blessing, receive the 3 treasures, and hopefully have the chance to escape the cycle of reincarnation, the cycle of suffering, or what we call the bitter sea. Now, the second reason is to teach and guide others. So we open these study classes where we discuss things like morality and righteousness. We discuss filial piety, the true meaning of life, and so much more. So a temple is a place where we can learn and work on changing ourselves for the better, right? So that we can find our own life's direction. So hopefully by then our wisdom can open up and lead us to a happier daily life and happier family life. And also temples help us follow the examples of Buddhas, right? So we can ferry other sentient beings and hopefully attain Buddhahood ourselves and help guide juniors who come after us. Now, thirdly, it's a place to cultivate and practice. So temple is a place for Tao members we can get together and cultivate together, a place where everyone can share what they learn in their daily lives. We can encourage each other using Tao principles that we learn. It's a place where we can all be sincere and be good and harmonious together. And we also learn to nurture our patience, right? Broaden our tolerance and help us practice good habits to develop our own character. And physically, it's a place where activities and events are held, and it gives opportunities to everybody to accumulate merits and virtues. Right, so temple lets us all come together, work towards that same goal, hopefully have that same unified heart, and we can all feel joy cultivating together like a family. So Holy Teacher shared 10 important reasons of opening a temple. The first, he says a temple is heaven's introduction center. So it's a place where people come and learn about heaven, right? If we never came to a temple to begin with, then we were never introduced to heaven, all the Dharma teachings. We wouldn't even know about it, right? So it's a place where the truth is preserved and can be shared with others. He says it's the office for the affairs of the 3 realms. So we know this time period is the last universal salvation of the 3 realms, meaning we're meant to save the souls in the relative heaven realm, the physical realm, and the underworld realm. So temples are like the office of affairs where we do the heavenly work and we can spread the Tao and ferry sentient beings. He also says it's an improvement center for learning to be Buddhas. So when we come to temple, we have transmitters, lecturers, speakers who give classes, but there are also a lot of holy scriptures and books in the temple, right? So all of those things can help us follow the Buddha's footsteps and be like them. It's a training center for cultivating to attain enlightenment. So there are tons of opportunities at temple for us to contribute and train. Things like attending the 5-year course curriculum we're in now, or eventually helping with different Tao affairs teams. So also keep in mind when we encounter hardships and tests along the way, all of that is meant to hone us and see if we made progress in our cultivation. So think of ourselves as diamonds, which are refined by fire, high pressure, and time, right? So with consistent effort and consistent cultivation, we can develop our wisdom and it'll lead us closer to enlightenment. He says it's heaven's gas station for accumulating merits. So, at a temple, there's always a lot to do, right? There's things from cooking to cleaning, opening classes. There are a lot of opportunities for us to accumulate merits. And just like when we're running low on gas in our cars, we need to go to the gas station to fill up to be able to drive. So it's the same idea, right? We don't know how much bad karma we might have that's using up all of our hard-earned merits. So we need to keep going and accumulate merits, fill up our gas tanks regularly, and just don't let it become empty, right? He says it's an emergency relief station for sentient beings' spiritual salvation. So that's kind of our whole mission, right? So to save the souls of all sentient beings. And how we do that is by bringing people to the temple to receive the Tao. We encourage them to cultivate, come to classes to learn, so that we can all save our souls. Right? This physical body we each have is only good for maybe, if we're lucky, up to 100 years. And that's being generous, right? So it's not permanent. The only thing permanent is our Buddha nature, our spirit. So that's what we're trying to save. So temples are physical places where our souls can rest, recharge. We know life can be really exhausting, especially as we get older. We face a lot of pressures from work, from family, and just everyday life. But temple helps us reconnect with the true purpose of our life, right? And reminds us of that bigger picture. So we frequently visit temple. It can help calm and settle our minds, our bodies, and our spirits. And it's a place where we can feel Buddha's radiant energy, right? And feel the presence of other cultivators. So when we're facing difficulties in our life, temple can be kind of like a refuge, helping us overcome our hardships. It's also a university for nurturing virtue and character. So we're all disciples or students of the Tao, but temple is where we learn how to nurture our virtues and build our character, right? And so it's kind of like a university because there's so many resources, teachers, right? Our holy teacher, all the Buddhas, even our transmitters and seniors are kind of like our mentors. And there's juniors who come after us who also need our guidance too. And this picture here is actually the Tongde Dao Group's actual university. Holy Teacher says temple is a blessed shelter of refuge to avoid calamities. And Transmitter Luo shared this image from another Dao group. And this was from the recent California wildfires. So we can see that the entire block is leveled by the fires, while this temple master's home is still standing. And here's another similar situation. There was a major plane crash in 1998 in Taiwan, which caused so much damage and fire. And this building on the right here is a home temple, and this is the temple master here. And every house to the left, that whole row of houses were destroyed by the fire. So we can see how much Buddhas try to help protect these temples. And he says that it's the happy place of Buddhas. So when we're sincere cultivators, we have a lot of positive yang energy, and temples also have a lot of positive energy too. So Buddhas and good spirits are attracted to that positive energy. And when I was younger, sometimes I remember being home alone and I'd get scared in the dark, and I would go sit in the living room near our home temple and feeling less scared. Okay, so you can really feel a change in the energy. And he says it's a pure land to let go of thoughts. So there's a sutra that says, when the mind is pure, the Buddha's land is pure. So a temple is meant to help us and remind us in the physical realm to transform the world into a more peaceful and enlightened place, right? So if we can purify our minds, let go, do not let a single thought arise, then we are in tune with our Buddha nature, right? And then we'll be able to spread goodness to all sentient beings. And Buddhas have said that we'll already be like Buddhas and can create heaven on earth ourselves. So Holy Teacher shared these 10 important reasons for opening a Tao temple. So we can see in the growth process of White Era disciples, which is all of us, the temple really does play a very important role. And some special significance and benefits of opening a temple. A heavenly Dharma boat crossing the sea of suffering. So to get across this bitter sea, we have to get on the boat. And if we establish a temple ourselves, then it's like, as temple masters, being a captain of a heavenly Dharma boat that helps others cross that sea of suffering. So the temple also serves like a vessel, right? And it spreads heaven's teachings. Establishing a temple also helps us perform meritorious deeds, fulfill our vows, cultivating blessings and wisdom. So we need to accumulate merits while we have the ability to. We want to also fulfill our vows, the ones we make on earth, this life, and all the ones we might have forgot about that we made in heaven. So by doing this, we can offset some of that bad karma we may have and hopefully return back to absolute heaven one day. It can help us deepen our affinity with Buddhas and widely cultivate good karmic affinity. So when we're able to create good karmic affinity with others and with Buddhas, people naturally gravitate toward us, and they're more willing to help us, like us, follow us. So temple is like the point where heaven and earth meet. It's a place for the communication between the two. And regularly cultivating Tao in the temple really does help promote a thriving environment, right? Filled with good energy, and we can create, connections of goodwill or good affinity that ripples out into the world like a domino effect, contributing to the collective good. And the blessings of Buddha's power aids cultivation. So when we set up a temple, we have Buddha's support from their blessings, or we can say power, and that can strengthen our own ability to cultivate and help us progress on our Tao path. Morning and evening proprieties to Buddhas leads to a healthy body and mind. So when we establish our own temple, we have to do the offerings and bows every day. And there's a lot of external benefits that come with that. Some things like improving our circulation. So Holy Teacher had said, some people have backaches and are not as flexible because the body has been overused and aged, not necessarily because of karma. So we can use the movement of koto, or bowing, to adjust our bodily functions, to improve the condition of the body. It's not always karma, but rather we do not maintain our body well. So doing bows well is the best qigong. It ensures that we can breathe easily and will not have backaches, but we have to do it right. If the posture is not correct, then breathing will not be smooth. The body becomes worse. So do not blame teacher. And also, every little detail of temple disciplines are strictly adhered to in heaven. So how could we just casually koto to Lamu, or God? And if we return to heaven to meet Lamu, we must know the bows. So we can see how much weight the Buddhas in heaven puts on rules and regulations of the temple. So Holy Teacher also said bowing can cleanse our minds, help us be calm, self-reflect, and repent. And it also nurtures our patience, humility, and respect. And its purpose is to find our true nature and can help us reduce our negative karma. So we should not underestimate its powers. Okay, so if we're temple masters, we know we need to do the morning bows between 5 a.m. and 7 a.m. and the evening bows between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m. every single day. Meaning we should try to go to bed earlier, ideally before 11 p.m., and we should try to wake up earlier. So Buddhas have told us in the past that it's better for our bodies and it helps us develop more positive yang energy, yang qi. So if we sleep very late or sleep a lot during the daytime, that can create more negative yin energy. And then with Buddha's blessings and protection, turn hardships into good fortune. So for example, in May 1998, during the anti-Chinese riots in Indonesia, there was a mother and daughter who were in a Tao temple when a mob burst in. And the mob, for some reason, was unable to see the two of them. And they rushed back out, but only to return a little while later, but they found the room empty again, so they left. So the temple offered these two cultivators, the mom and the daughter, safety and protection during times of hardship. In another case, there was this really big fire in Taiwan. It was a tire factory explosion. They said it was like 1,000-something degrees, and people nearby said it was pretty much unbearable, and they couldn't breathe. So let's watch this little clip. We can see how big the fire is. It's pretty scary, right? So after the fire was put out, this is what some of the damage looked like. This entire back area of the temple was on fire and damaged, which we can see. But the inside of the temple was completely untouched. So it's really incredible. And I remember when I was little, my mom would always tell me if there was ever a disaster or some sort of emergency situation to go hide under the temple. So opening a temple fulfills our heavenly duty, and our ancestors can receive benefits. So ancestors are our family members who've come before us, like our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, etc. So everything we do in our cultivation journeys, our ancestors are able to benefit. And when we attend classes, they're able to listen in too. And when we build our merits, they're able to benefit from that as well. So if we establish our own temple, our ancestors are going to be very happy. And there was a Tao member who had donated a big piece of land, and it was several acres big. And he wanted to build a big temple for sentient beings. But after he passed away, his son went to our grand predecessor and demanded it basically be returned to him. So the grand predecessor said, okay, if you want it back, then go ahead. So the son really did take the land back. But by doing that, his father's position in heaven dropped because of it. So he no longer had the big merits from donating. So we want to make sure everything we do, we're always making our ancestors proud, not disgracing them. And there's this other story of a temple master Zuo in Taiwan. Her husband, Mr. Zhang, was very stubborn, and he had a chicken restaurant. Now, temple master Zuo was very sincere in cultivating Tao and had already taken the vegan vow before they got married. Now, after they got married, they had set up a home temple, which was up the mountain from their restaurant. And when their daughter was little, she said she could often hear the chickens screaming for help in the middle of the night. So the little girl would urge her father to stop killing, stop creating bad karma. But because Mr. Zhang was very stubborn, he wasn't willing to listen. And eventually he ended up passing away from a heart attack. And they said when he died, his body was very stiff. Now, sometime later during a Dharma class, his soul was brought back through channeling, and he was crying bitterly and shared the details of his passing. And he said that during his life, he accumulated heavy karmic debt, particularly from killing. And as a result, when he passed away, his soul did not ascend to heaven, but instead wandered to hell. So he drifted in hell for a long time until one day he encountered Ksitigarbha Buddha, the Buddha of the underworld, who knew that Mr. Zhang was like a Tao member, and his family had set up a home temple. So the Buddha had mercifully decided to take Mr. Zhang's soul back to heaven because of the merits and affinity from his family's establishment of their home temple. So during the channeling, Mr. Zhang said he deeply regrets that he did not listen to his wife or his kids' advice when he was alive. And in the pursuit of short-term profit, he continued to kill and create negative karma. And after his death, he had repeatedly tried to manifest in the physical realm, hoping to alert his family and let the business decline. And he hoped his brothers would change their ways and stop creating bad karma too. So he also urged his children, saying, as a father who had no merits and was full of sin, the only way for him to accumulate merit now was dependent on the good deeds of his children. So he hoped that they would regularly invite transmitters to their home temple to hold classes and study sessions, because each Tao receiving ceremony and each study class, he was able to receive some merits, allowing him to benefit. So Mr. Zhang's experience really shows us that just receiving Tao is not necessarily a guarantee to go back to heaven, right? Even if we receive Tao, but we do lots of bad things, create bad karma with sentient beings, we may not be accepted by heaven, right? So we need to stop creating bad karma while we can, keep doing our heavenly duty to offset some of that and help our ancestors benefit. Now, Holy Teacher also said, whatever our family name is, that's also the name of our family temple. So as descendants, if we can bring glory to our ancestors, he says our life will have great meaning. Now, it's also a chance to carry forward the family tradition of cultivating Tao. So establishing a temple is kind of like, we can think of it as a gift for future generations. We're able to pass down the practices, the values, and Tao teachings, and maybe even the physical temple one day. And I used to plan that I would, establish a home temple once I was done having kids and they were a little older so they could help. And I thought it would be too hard having young kids and having a temple. But a few years ago, my mom, Lecturer Shi, said to me that it might actually be easier to do it before having kids, right? So they can grow up watching us do it and be involved already so that they'll be used to it versus, them having to learn it all and we all change our lifestyles at the same time. And she was right. My daughter's 1.5 now, and she does try to do the bows with us every day. And even just the other day, she had reminded me it was time to go do the evening propriety. So while it was easier to, make excuses, or even put it off and say, I'll do it in the future when I have time. But we really never know how much time we have, right? Tomorrow's never promised. So it's best to do it while we still have the ability and opportunity to. We have to make time for what's important. And there was this time in California where a Dao member was very devoted to helping temple. And one time, Holy Teacher had channeled during a Dharma class and basically told her, you know, you dedicate so much time to temple, you want to achieve Buddhahood, but don't forget about your kids. You know, you want them to also achieve Buddhahood. So this Dao member, she just didn't think about her kids. She was just thinking about going to temple to help when she could. So this really reminds us that we want to share good things with our loved ones, our spouses, our parents, our friends, but don't forget about our own kids too, right? If we wait too long and they're grown with their own busy lives and their own families, it can be a lot harder to bring them into the temple. So Holy Teacher shared with us another 6 benefits of opening a temple. With a home temple set up, we can bow and koto to Buddhas every day, frequently reflect inwardly, repent, and humble ourselves with our words and actions, and this can help reduce karmic debts. So with a home temple, we can invite Buddhas and God into our home every day when we bow. We can pay respect to them, as well as the Buddha within each of us, our Buddha nature. And we can work on reducing some of our karmic debts. So really having our own home temple is an honor, but it's also very convenient. He also said, think to ourselves, consider how many karmic offenses have been accumulated over the past 60,000 years, how much we owe, so much karmic debt. So now we must increase our efforts in performing good deeds and cultivating virtues, and of course, ask for Buddha's mercy and protection. Using a heart of repentance, let creditors come to claim their retribution slowly. So when we're constantly sincerely cultivating and building up our virtues and our merits, Buddhas are actually able to negotiate with our creditors, right? Those sentient beings that we owe. And Buddhas can ask them to give us time to build up our merits so that we can slowly pay it back, hopefully. And that's why it's really important we never slow down or stop cultivating, right? Because then Buddhas can't help us, and the creditors might demand their payback right now. So it's said that bodhisattvas fear planting seeds of karma, so they're very careful with their thoughts and their actions so that they can avoid the consequences of karmic retribution. So we want to be like that too, very intentional with our thoughts and our actions, right? We want to try not to accidentally plant seeds of karma, especially with our thoughts. Having guidance of temple rules and regulations in the home helps family life feel happier and more harmonious. Spouses respect each other and children are taught using the Tao. So when families have the same values, it's easier to have a happy home life because everyone's aligned, right? And as parents, you can teach the same values to our children. So hopefully they grow up with virtues and Tao principles in their hearts and in their minds. So children are known to observe and learn from their parents. So if we're setting good examples for our kids, then they'll naturally learn from us and behave similarly. And by having a home temple, seeing it every day serves as a constant reminder that we should cultivate ourselves well and to do good. This is the benefit of establishing a temple. So obviously, when we constantly see something, we have a built-in reminder, right? Whereas if we don't see something physical, it can be easy to forget about it or not prioritize it. So having a home temple naturally helps us make progress in cultivating, right? Because we're actively doing temple activities every single day when we have a home temple. So Holy Teacher said opening a temple at home benefits ourselves, but it also benefits the 7 generations of ancestors before us and the 9 generations of descendants after us. By doing bows every day to Buddhas, and there's also 1 bow to our ancestors in the propriety, that's one of the things that is special about opening our own temple. So every day we can pay respect and thank our own ancestors. So that's really special. He also says, it can also subtly influence the people around us. Therefore, setting up a home temple is a great accomplishment and something that lasts a lifetime. So when we're sincere in our cultivation, we can improve, and when we improve, the people around us will notice or subconsciously improve too. So when we establish a temple, it can help ourselves and help all of those around us, right? It's just like we said, the ripple effect, that domino effect, we spread it out into the world. So to share a few more testimonies, so we may have already heard this concept before, but those with yin-yang eyes can see invisible flags. And when we make vows, we're given a yellow flag. So we know we get one yellow flag when we receive the Tao. We get another one when we make the vegan vow. If we become a lecturer, we get another flag. And if we make the vow to move somewhere new to propagate Tao, that's another flag. And another one for transmitters. So Buddhas can see these invisible flags and can easily tell who to save during times of disasters or hardships. In 1978, there was a group of young people in Taiwan in a village, and they were there to spread the Tao. And one night, they were discussing preparations for setting up the temple when all of a sudden a temple master stood up and started making the Bodhisattva hand gesture and told the Tao members that she was Nenhai Gufo, or we might know her as Guanyin Lady Bodhisattva, who was channeled with heaven's mandate. And she said she was moved by these young Tao members' sincerity and dedication, so she came to encourage them. So the Lady Bodhisattva explained the preciousness of establishing a temple and said, although the temple's not yet set up here, because of all of their sincere hearts, the Buddhas have already placed a large yellow flag consisting of 108 segments on the northeast corner of the roof. So then the Tao members asked, well, what's this large yellow flag and what is it for? And the Lady Bodhisattva explained, well, did you know that every temple has a large yellow flag on its roof? This flag helps ensure peace and safety. It's heaven's will and confirms the preciousness of the great Tao. Additionally, after someone receives the Tao, a small yellow flag is placed above their head to protect them and ensure their safety. So Lady Bodhisattva here is confirming that these invisible flags are real, even though most of us can't see them. And this temple these young cultivators opened in Taiwan is called Zhenhe Temple. Now, opening a temple is a way to invite God and all the Buddhas into our home and our neighborhood to join us, to accompany us in our daily lives, in our cultivation. So if our space allows, they said it's more important to have a pure and elegant space than to have a large, luxurious space. So it's encouraged to widely establish temples with sincerity and dedication, right? We know sincerity moves heaven, and we know it fulfills our vows, and the merits that come with it are limitless. To share another story from the Tsongde group, located in the Himalayan mountains, this temple master, PeiDe, he set up a temple in December 2014. So from Nepal's city center, Kathmandu, to get to the temple in the mountains, they said it takes 2 days by car and then a 5-hour hike up the mountain paths. So they actually had to carry all the materials for the temple up the mountain. And the Buddha statue came from Singapore, and even the altar table was carried from the bottom of the mountain all the way up to the temple. So we can see that, they're covered in sweat, working very hard. And we can see a lot of the other villagers are in the pictures helping too, right? Now, despite the exhaustion and fatigue, the hard work and time, we can see that their determination is really amazing. And here's a photo of some of the materials that they actually had to carry up the mountain for the structure, right? We can see how much they had to bring up and how much manual labor that they had to do to make this temple. So this is what the temple looked like when they were done on the exterior. And it's called the Mingguang Temple. And although the temple inside is quite small, but we can see the sincerity and dedication is tenfold. So the day the temple was set up, 65 people actually came to receive the Tao, and they said that's nearly the entire village. But just a few months later, in April, there was a massive earthquake, 7.9 magnitude. So mountains were collapsed, the ground was split open, homes were leveled, roads and bridges were destroyed. And because of the remote location in the mountains, the transportation and medical infrastructure was already pretty bad. But then with all the earthquake damage, they said it was even worse. So rescue and relief efforts were very, very difficult. So they said that a 25-person rescue team was traveling to their town to help, but another aftershock from the earthquake triggered a snowstorm that actually buried that entire team alive. And soon after, another 5-person rescue team attempted to enter the area, but another 7.4 magnitude aftershock caused another landslide and buried that team alive as well. Now, the village in the mountain, almost all of the houses were destroyed because of that earthquake, except for one. One was completely unharmed, and somehow all of the villagers in that town were safe. And that one house that was still standing was the Mingguang Temple. And they said that the temple lamps, the porcelain Buddha statue, and even the teacups were all okay. There were no signs of shaking or falling, and the villagers were all astonished by this, and it strengthened their faith in the Tao. So to help with the relief, Taiwan's Tongda Tao Affairs Center actually airlifted supplies to them in Nepal. But they still had some trouble getting the supplies up the mountain with all of the blockages and damage. And they said there were even looters or robbers stealing the supplies along the way. So the temple master actually had to send villagers secretly at night to go get the supplies at the bottom of the mountain. And this temple master, he worked hard in helping with all of the disaster relief. They said he organized volunteer teams to help clear schools and homes for the victims. And even though the road to recovery was long, Temple Master PeiDe said, "I believe in Holy Teacher and I believe in heaven. And in the days to come, I will even more diligently cultivate and propagate the Tao." So it could have been really easy to blame heaven, say, how could such a horrible thing happen to me, to my village, just after I'd set up the temple? But instead, he saw how precious the Tao was, and it made him even more sure that cultivating and helping others is the right thing to do. So a temple master is a heavenly title. And as long as temple masters cultivate and propagate sincerely with their whole heart, they'll be respected by those on earth and those in heaven. So it's a really big responsibility. And while it does require some physical upkeep and effort, but it also requires internal spiritual nurturing as well, right? So even, we say we have to clean this physical temple altar periodically. We want to wipe away any dust. But similarly, we have to do the same with our internal formless temple, right? We have to get rid of any dust and restore our Buddha nature. So what are some of the qualifications to be a temple host or a temple master? Well, first, we need to be able to make the vegan vow, which, is a lifetime commitment. So is opening a home temple. So it really shouldn't be taken lightly, right? If, the other option is we can first practice following a vegan diet if we're not quite ready to make that vow. We can be a vice temple master first. So that does not require making the vegan vow. But to set up a home temple, at least one member of the household must be vegan, have made the vegan vow, and the other family members should have at least received the Tao. And temple masters should be physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy. So temple masters should be sincerely cultivating, already be doing the work that comes with cultivating, right? And comes with opening a temple. And they should be of good character and righteous. They have to have the willingness to take on heavenly responsibilities, value the sacred over the mundane, and practice the giving of wealth, dharma, and encouragement. So these temple masters, when we open a temple, we have to be willing to cooperate and coordinate with our local transmitter or the transmitters in charge. And, they have to be willing to shoulder the responsibility that comes with being a temple master. For example, like the daily proprieties, there's special holiday offerings, ceremonies, and possibly opening classes. So the temple master should warmly welcome visitors to the temple, whether those people are seeking the Tao blessing or they could be fellow cultivators, right? So temple masters should offer others warm hospitality, smiles, enthusiastic reception, and should treat everyone equally. And they have to understand the responsibilities of managing the temple and is willing to align and follow the rules and teachings. So there are some established regulations and proprieties that come with setting up a temple. And these are really just guidelines that help us be successful, right? So temple masters need to have that willingness to align with the instructions or structure provided from the transmitters. For home temples, families should be united. Husband and wife cultivate together. Parents and children should not be opposed. So ideally, families should be in harmony and decide to open a home temple together. And the kids should also be on board. And what we're describing is really the ideal scenario. So it may not be realistic for all situations, but just in an ideal world, everyone's on the same page, right? Opening a temple should really be a happy family occasion. And truthfully, it's much easier to manage as a team rather than just one person taking on the entire responsibility on their own. So the never resting Bodhisattva, she said, establish a temple to guide and help people, thereby accumulating merit and virtue. A temple on earth is a lotus seat in heaven. So our lotus position in heaven after we pass away is determined by our actions, our cultivation, and contributions from when we're on earth now, right? So we can't attain a lotus position if we don't make progress, while we have this chance. So it's really up to us. Do we want that small lotus flower, a wilted lotus flower, or do we want a big one waiting for us in heaven when we get there? So we really want to consider it. If our situation permits, or if there's plans for the future, it really is encouraged to set up a home temple. And by taking on the responsibility, we can improve more quickly and truly help others and those around us. And, if we think about how much we can impact others by establishing a temple, as temple masters, we're setting an example for others. We're messengers of heaven. So when we invite other people to our temple for classes, maybe they're ancestors and they get to come and listen to the Tao teachings. And after class, maybe they help clean or cook. So we're helping create opportunities for others to also accumulate merits, right? We're able to create good affinity with them as well. Temple is a bridge between heaven and the sea of suffering. So that includes all sentient beings, right? Most of who are floating in this bitter sea. And temple is that bridge or that life raft. And we just all need to grab on and, help each other. And Buddhas have said that establishing a home temple on earth is 1,300 merits. So it's a way to accumulate great merits quickly. But of course, we want to be qualified and sincere. If we just open a temple without thinking it through, without being sure and committed, and one day maybe we change our minds and decide we want to quit being a temple master, well, that would be a big shame, but also that could have major consequences. So we want to make sure we're confident and sure that that's what we want to do. So opening a temple, it's a guide for Buddha's disciples. It's all of us, and it gives us a chance to transcend life and death. Opening a temple teaches. It awakens those who are lost, and it can change our fate. It can improve our character and our destiny. So Holy Teacher said, if we make mistakes in our words and our actions, we can repent sincerely before God at our home temple or our home altar. And with this continuous practice over time, we can actually transform our destiny. Opening a temple is filial, right? It helps ancestors receive benefits. When we do the morning and evening propriety, it helps us learn humility. And Buddha's light shines. So opening a temple can protect sentient beings from disasters and difficulties. So as we approach the end of, the era, calamities and disasters we're seeing keep coming, right? It's very unpredictable. and they're getting worse and worse. So how can we even guarantee that we won't be the next victims, right? Even as Tao cultivators, there's still no guarantee, right? They say human plans are no match for the will of heaven. So some people try to fortify their homes with like iron windows, steel doors, but that can't protect against all disasters, right? And we know our physical bodies are actually considered quite fragile. So how do we ensure our safety? Well, in modern times, a lot of people buy insurance, but insurance doesn't really, keep us safe. It's not truly a safety net. The only true way to protect our home, protect our family, is by accumulating virtues, eliminating karmic debts, and establishing a home temple as a protective treasure for our household. So in these times of calamity and disasters, what we need is not more high-rise buildings and shopping centers, but what we need is temples that can shield us from these disasters. So establishing a temple is a way to offer our families and loved ones more layers of protection, ensuring that we can provide not just comfort, but also a safe haven. So Buddha said to be able to receive Tao means we have affinity. To be able to propagate Tao means we have a share in it. And having affinity and a share means having a deep and solid foundation. So those who can establish a temple to assist heaven in saving all beings are individuals with a mission and strong vows. So to conclude, Holy Teacher said that a temple is a large Dharma boat that helps and guides sentient beings. It's a place to receive, cultivate, and propagate Tao. It's where we can donate and build merits. And we can guide others in the direction of goodness, which comes with limitless merits. So we know the causes of suffering come from our thoughts, from our attachments, from karma and actions, and only through cultivating Tao can we really truly resolve and transform that suffering, right? Yet we know so many people are caught up by mundane affairs, these day-to-day lives, and they might abandon their cultivation and the Tao, maybe waste time that they could be spent doing holy matters. So ask ourselves, does living a mundane life let us truly be more carefree? We should consider that every person has the same amount of time in each day. We could use that time for ordinary matters or for holy matters. So wouldn't it be more meaningful and, to cherish and wisely spend each day of our life? So again, 1,300 merits for opening a temple. It can help our 7 generations of ancestors and 9 generations of descendants leave the sea of suffering. It gives us a chance to attain Buddhahood. So again, we don't need to wait until death to experience this, right? And experience paradise. We can access it now through our sincere cultivation. So what we don't know or might be unaware of is that we all have this inherent potential for Buddhahood, right? Because we don't know about this Buddha nature within each of us. So we just have to return to our original state, that true nature of wisdom and enlightenment. Then we'll have the ability to distinguish between good and evil, right and wrong, and suppress any evil tendencies or bad habits that might arise. And Holy Teacher said that temple masters have wisdom, so they establish temples and save sentient beings. That's why they open these temples. So we can see how much weight Buddha's put on establishing these temples and how much we can benefit from it ourselves as well as help so many other people. So it's not just for the comfort of ourselves, but for the well-being of all sentient beings in the world. So today we actually do have considerably favorable circumstances, timing, location, and each other. We have so many wise predecessors or seniors that are here to guide us, and we have many fellow cultivators supporting one another. So we should really cherish this time and this opportunity, right? The preciousness of life is just, is fulfilling our duties, our heavenly duties, and living our life with purpose, right? We just want to expand our vision, open our hearts. There's nothing unattainable if we're willing to act to do it. So if we can, try our best to set opening a home temple as a kind of a goal for ourselves. And if we have any specific questions about opening a temple, feel free to ask, discuss with the transmitters for guidance as well. So that concludes the class today. If I said anything wrong, I ask heaven for forgiveness, for transmitters and lecturers to please correct me. Thank you.